Welcome to the Pixel Retentive podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made and the host of the Pixel Retentive podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Greg Walter of Too Tall, Brandy Grace Wong of Totally Branded, and Matt Vojak of Made by Things. We are forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast and are always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of strategists and artists who excel in visual storytelling. Our studio crafts unforgettable animation and illustration that not only captivates your audience, but also drives tangible business results. We specialize in engaging in imaginative, pop culture savvy audiences with beloved clients like Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today, we have Fadi Boulos. Fadi is the founder of Supportful, a software engineering consulting firm. He is on a mission to reduce the brain drain in his native Lebanon by providing international tech companies with remote talent. Fadi has worked in multiple countries and is fond of everything remote, company culture, and social impact. Welcome to the show, Fadi.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So how bad did I butcher your name on that intro? It's like, I think...
No, it was fine. It was fine.
That's good. Good
Almost like a native Lebanese.
Oh, yeah, right. Perfect. I love it. All right, so before we get into the meat of the show today, I usually like to ask my guests a little intro question. So how long have you been in your industry, and what project are you most proud of so far?
I've been in digital and technology since the beginning, so since I graduated in 2006.
Okay.
But the last 3 years were really different because I founded my own company, Supportful. And it's a purpose-driven company. We're trying to make an impact in people's lives. And so the experience was quite rewarding so far. And I hope it will get better with time. So many challenges. Each phase has its challenges, but also its rewards. So, looking forward to the rest of the adventure.
Yeah, dude, founding your own thing, no matter what industry you're in, it's a whole ass journey. The roller coasters and ups and downs. And man, I love the graph. I don't know if you've ever seen the little meme, but it's just like, this is what people think success looks like. And it's like, what success actually looks like. It's like it's
absolutely. And when you're on the downside, it's not funny, it's not easy. No. But then you say, okay, I've been through something like that, and I look forward to being on the uphill. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I started this company in 2006, and I've seen some shit. Like, and I was still, studying at the university before, like, when I started this company, and like right into the 2008 recession, and then up and down, all the craziness through that, and then COVID, and where we're at now, but it's been fun. And every time it gets dark and gloomy, it's like, what else would I do with my life? Like, nothing. Let me just go back and figure this out. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? That's the thing. When entrepreneurs start their thing, I'm always just like, hey, look, if you got like a plan B and C and D already worked out, that it start like, betting that you're probably going to fail, like, man, that's not the right mentality. Like, you've got to really be all in on this, and like, how do you layer the system in?
Yeah, this is the mindset. There's no way back. Just keep pushing, especially if the concept is valid. If you're seeing, traction, failing is okay. But if you think you succeeded so far, why wouldn't the things remain the same? So I think, yeah.
I'm with it, man. I was thinking I was failing for a few years. I didn't get our first big client till like 2019. And so from 2006 to 2019, almost no clients worth, like, no household brand names, right? Like, it was all just like local small business and just like $500 logos and, some T-shirts, and like, it just trying to make it. And then we finally got a gig with Sci-Fi. And then it was like, then we just kept going and going and just like we built ourselves up. But it's at some point in that journey, I was really getting depressed and upset about like, oh, I hadn't arrived yet. Like I'm going to make it one day. And it's like, wait a minute, I've been living off of this business for over a decade. Like I've been doing this thing for my life. It hasn't been great. I have, it's been tight, but like I'm living on my own terms and my own means. Like if that's not success, what is, right? Like,
all right. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it was hard, but.
And imagine if you had stopped, let's say you had your first big client, you landed it, let's say mid 2019. Imagine if you stopped everything early 2019.
Oh, I know.
I mean, so that's why you should keep pushing. Eventually, we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the mindset. Well, look, so, you're in Lebanon and part of what you're doing with your business is allowing people to add high-level tech talent across the world remotely, right? Through what your company is doing, which I think is amazing. And, we talked a little bit in the pre-show that we've been doing remote work since long ago before it was cool. Like I had an office for a little while, but no one ever really did the work in the office. It was just to like prove we're a real business, whatever the hell that used to mean in the pre-COVID days. But this remote work thing is here. It's here to stay. People embrace it. Large companies embrace it. So, I'd love to talk about that because it's a whole different way to work, and company culture and the things that people used to do to build company culture don't translate to remote one-to-one, right? There has to be new approaches. So I'd love to just kind of hear the deep dive from the guru here. So let's go for it.
Yes. So, we're having this chat today, and Amazon just announced a couple of days ago that they want everyone in the office 5 days a week starting 2025. And it's so disappointing. Big tech hasn't learned anything during the pandemic. So they all want to see their team. It's it's a lack of trust. It's a mindset from the 1900s. Yep. We want to control our employees. It's disappointing. But on the other hand, there are so many companies embracing this flexibility in location mostly, but also in schedule. So I would say I have a saying. If you need an office to have a culture, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously, culture is not linked to the office, especially nowadays where everything is being done on this screen. So work and the interaction and everything is produced here. So why do you need to sit down next to someone else if you can have a meeting with them online, if you can collaborate with talent from across the borders? So, I think you don't need this. To build a culture, you need, pillars around the human interaction, how you communicate, the company values, how we work together. This is what makes a culture and not a physical office that you can already replicate online with Slack or Teams or whatever virtual workplace.
100% agree with that. Not surprised that big giant companies that are used to owning everybody, want them all to come back into the office so that they can grind every little last bit of productivity out of them, which doesn't really work, by the way. It's this delusion that you can work a straight 40 hours like a crazy person and do all this work. It's like, no, you're probably still stressed out about all the things that you can't handle and the extra commute and the drive and all the bullshit and parking and everything that goes into all of that you're wasting your life going into this office. Now, is there a time and a place for hybrid solutions? Of course there is, right? Is there some draw that if we're all just hanging out here in the office, like my team, I have 4 or 5 of my leadership people come over and we sit here in this office and we do things a couple times a year, but we get shit done remotely, all the time. And there is company culture. They know what our policies are and how we interact with each other as human beings. It starts with how your employee or your team member, your contractor, whatever they are, how they feel about working in this company, right? Are you valued? Do you value work-life balance? I make my team take days off. There's no vacation time. There's no sick days. It's what do you need as a human being? You're a grown-ass adult. You know what your job is. Like, I don't need to babysit. I don't want to babysit anybody. Like that's the future of working. Like, if I need to hold your hand, go somewhere else. Like, we don't hold hands here. Like, you know what your job is, right? If you need assistance, if you need like, hey, there's things missing, like we'll fill that in for you. But I just want you to be happy, healthy, and do really great work. So what do we need to make that happen? And that's the culture.
Back.
And you don't need an office to do that.
This is the mindset. And speaking of people to take care of, I mean, I have already 4 children. I don't need any more children to babysit.
Exactly.
Everyone is grown up. It's trust-based. And, it's linked also to performance. So there's no way, I mean, it's so dumb to think that someone sitting in front of the screen is working 8 hours a day, whether they're in the office or in their home. So it's really, like a very basic thinking. And and they also, big tech feels like if you provide some perks in the office, you might attract or appeal to more talent. So this is the economic part, but there's also something at Supportful that we work on, which is we don't want anymore to lose our human capital in Lebanon. So I founded the company in 2021. It was the financial crisis in Lebanon. And when I say financial crisis, it was a bad one. It was labeled by the World Bank as the worst crisis in the last 150 years across the world.
Specifically in Lebanon, or across the whole world?
No, across globally.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay.
So, we had everyone's savings in the banks. They vanished. Triple-digit inflation for 3 years in a row. Currency devaluation of 98%. We had the shortage in power, internet connection, and medicine. It was unlivable. And people started, Lebanese people, they're everywhere in the world. So everyone has a cousin somewhere. Everyone who has a degree can easily leave the country. And so everyone started to leaving. I mean, it has never stopped in Lebanon. Yeah. Everyone has been leaving for the past maybe 150 years. But in that crisis, even those who are 40 and above, they were leaving and taking their families with them. So it was a real and painful brain drain. And it was the peak of remote work and the high demand for software engineers. So I said to myself, what can I do about this? Maybe something small. And then, sometimes serendipity, just make a phone call to someone. And he says, yeah, in the US, you're calling at the right time. We need software engineers. And I started this as a side hustle. And then a few months later, I quit and went all in. And really the idea is to provide those tech companies that are in the US or in Europe or anywhere with remote talent. In this case, what we'll be doing is we'll be helping these people to stay in the country. And moreover, because we're all remote, they will be staying in their hometown and spending their money at local businesses and helping create this sustainable ecosystem that is knowledge-based and that only needs an internet connection. And this is very good for the future of the country because we'll be preserving our human capital instead of losing it to the world.
100%. And with technology, like you're talking about and all the different, I mean, like I have an assistant that I work with in the Philippines, and I can video chat with her walking in the woods at my park live, and she's across the planet. Like, why do we need to be anywhere? Right? Like it's on my phone. Like, it's crazy. Again, we're about the same age, I think, and like the technology. Like when I first got dial-up internet, like I was on 28.8. I'm trying to download games and play online, and it was just. And now it's like I can video chat people 13 hours away from me across the world on my phone. It's wild.
Yeah, and my parents used to yell at me because they needed to use the phone.
Same.
And crazy.
I downloaded allegedly, maybe I might have downloaded so much music as a child. Like, my phone lines were always busy. My mom didn't even know what was going on. She's like, I don't know if I can get a hold of us. Like, oh no, on the internet. It was, these good times. But yeah, it's, the way these things are evolving, we could talk a little bit about this, but we're creating, we've always for a long time had lots of international trade, and that's sort of like what's driven economies for forever. But now we're in a space where everybody has access to all of this talent across the world. And it's not just like, oh, the U.S. is the end all be all of the best everything in the world, which, is some sort of egocentric mentality here that I grew up in, right? Like, we grew up obviously in different places. The pay gaps are starting to decrease too. Like, so you talked about like everyone's savings went away and the whole economy kind of blew up across the whole world. Mm-hmm. All that money went to the top. Obviously, the shareholder class who already owned everything just owns more shit now. But I won't get into all of that. But what I've seen now is like you used to be able to get like, people, they used to offshore work for crazy cheap, like dollars of, an hour. And now it's like that's even starting to go away because everyone has the same access, right? And in my company, like we had a big project come through where I needed a few contractors, and I pulled in 3 contractors on this project. And it was an art project, $2,000 a month was what I had budgeted for each one of the artists. So, it wasn't crazy, but it was still like a good amount of work each month. And I tried to find people here in the States, and I couldn't find anybody. I found two of the 3 people I needed here in the States, regular contractors I work with. And the third one I found on Facebook that lives in Indonesia. And when I, told this person, like, hey, look, the budget's, they tried to tell me, like, they wanted like $30 per illustration or something. Just like, no, like, I can't ethically pay you that. Like, I don't feel good about that. Like, you're still a man on this planet trying to like live your life. Like, this is worth $2,000 a month to me. And if you were sitting next to me here in the United States, I'd pay you that. Why should I pay you different where you live? And that's just where I'm at. So, but that guy like was so excited and was like, I'm providing for my entire family with this. I was like, well, full disclosure, this is only going to be here for 7 months, so be intelligent with it. But like, that guy loved us. Like, that guy would have done anything for us for the same amount of money. So now me as an entrepreneur, like, I love keeping the money in my local economy, and I support local business as much as possible. And I had never used overseas employees previous to COVID. But it just got to the space where it's like, I needed this talent and I couldn't find them here locally. And so I just had to go with like the relationships that I had made across the whole planet. And this guy crushed it. And it felt good to make such a huge impact on his life. Like, so there was that emotional investment for me that's like, I love helping people. And when this guy's like, hey man, I'm living like a king here on this is crazy amounts of money. I'm just like, dude, well, like everyone on my team can get up and move to Indonesia if we felt so inclined, right? Like that's one plane ticket away, right? Like, so like, I wouldn't pay them any different. So like they could go live on this, like, conversion rate that's way crazy compared to what we're doing. And so it's just crazy to me, like, just the whole global economy shifting, right? The large exploitation of labor forces at super minimal things is going away because everybody can get crypto. Everybody can be on the internet. Everybody can trade in these markets now very effectively. So sorry, I didn't mean to go on a crazy diet.
And one other thing is increasing diversity. So research has shown that teams with more diverse research teams with more diverse backgrounds, they perform better than teams from a single discipline. And, we always say when two people from different cultures, they have a baby, usually the child is more handsome than being from a single origin. So I think there's wisdom in diversity, and nature loves diversity. And so having teams from all across the planet is something good for, cultural proximity, for people to be more empathetic, to understand where other people come from when they think about something, and eventually for productivity.
1,000%. My wife and I were having this conversation yesterday. They actually do diversity and inclusion training with her company and a whole lot of stuff in the grassroots, organizing space here in the States. But we're huge nature junk. Like I grow a bunch of food in my backyard and all this sort of stuff. And when we moved here, it was like your typical American suburban yard. I got an acre of land. It was one species of grass, some pine trees, and a bunch of inconsequential bullshit, like no ecosystem, right? So as we've incorporated more diversity in the plants, then there's more diversity in the insects, and then we have lizards, and we have voles and moles, and then we have squirrels, and we have foxes, and then we have eagles, and it's like, this is an ecosystem, and the more diverse, biodiverse something is in nature, the more stable it is, right? The more it can resist different changes in the temperature and invasive species. And it's all the same thing translates into that same wisdom in nature into business, because the more ideas you have, the more inclusive of the whole world that you're going to be interacting with, because almost everything's, unless it's a local small business, like, restaurant, like most of these businesses are internationally focused on the larger scale. And the more opinions, perspectives, cultural histories you have incorporated into those teams, the better results you're going to get, because it's just more variables are included. So I'll 100% agree with you. All right, so we talked about cultural impact a bit too. So I'd love to kind of get into that a little bit. So, remote work's impact on local communities, people, culture, that sort of stuff. Like, love to hear some more of your thoughts there.
Yeah, so, by just allowing people to work from the location of their choice. In our case, knowing the context of Lebanon, which has been quite tough for the past decades, there hasn't ever been real stability. So this is our way to help people stay in the country. And by impact, we mean something good for the country and good for the people, because, some of them want to care for their parents. And this is a problem that we are currently facing in Lebanon. So many of the families have their kids abroad and parents in the country. So it's like the country is becoming a pension house where kids come, spend the summer vacation here, and then leave. And throughout the year, parents are alone. And at some point, they will need assistance. They will need someone to take care of them. Yeah. And this is one of the big things I think we will see in the coming years in Lebanon. And we need more people to stay here and to live in the natural environment. Another thing, because of COVID, people in some sense went back to the roots, I think across the world. And in Lebanon, many villages that were abandoned because there were no opportunities there, saw an influx of people, young people coming back. And because of the crisis, housing is quite affordable there. So with an internet connection, they now can build a life in their small community and giving another chance and another life to this community. Wow. So, I think this is something, if it scales, we can do a big change in the country.
I love that. So so these villages that were abandoned, when I think of a village in my head, like these are homes and like a little like small community, right? Like I think we would call it like a small town here in the United States versus like a village. But I think we're talking about the same thing. So, I'm seeing a lot of push, especially in these like more self-reliant communities where you're growing some of your food and you've got solar and maybe some sort of like remote satellite internet stuff. I mean, those kind of communities, and I think people and the let's call it like 35 to 45 range in the States, and then younger, like we're seeing a lot more like van life type of stuff here, where people like sell all their shit and just live out of a van and travel around, and they have internet, and like they live a nice life, and they're not dependent on all these systems that have been so oppressive their whole life. It's like, hey, you got to work this job, do 40, 60, 70, 80 hours a week to buy some stuff to like have a weekend once in a while and 3 weeks a year to yourself. And it's like, no one wants that lifestyle anymore. And I think this remote work like shift is letting people have their lives back in a way that's meaningful for them. And then I just burnt out, wake up at 60, 70 years old going, where'd my whole life go? I paid my bills. Like what meaningful shit did you do with your life besides make some other people rich? It's not a fair shake for most people, and that whole system's, I think, hopefully, getting shook up pretty hard right now still. And
I think there was this awakening call, during the pandemic, and because people were confined and people were, I think there was some self-reflection. I mean, what's the meaning of life?
Yes.
When a virus that we cannot even see changed our lives drastically. And there were some great initiatives at the time. Some of them are still here. But for me, we should really think of how to live a sustainable life on this planet. Yeah. And sustainable means less mega cities, less pollution, less commute. So just allowing people to live where they should normally live. And one example I always give is, those Italian, small Italian towns that you hear it probably a couple of times a year. They announce, we're letting people come and pay €1 to get this house. We just want more people in our town. Are you familiar with this?
Not at all.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, you can check it out. Italy, Greece, those Mediterranean countries have gorgeous landscape and towns. And because they have no young people anymore, they advertise houses for €1, and the only condition is to come back, renovate the house, and stay in the village.
Wow.
And, this has also shifted to Sweden earlier this year. I posted about it on LinkedIn. And so towns trying to attract people. So in Lebanon, we're not there yet because we already lost the human capital and there's no future in these communities.
Right.
But, with an internet connection and some knowledge, you can go back, live in your village, or even better, not ever leave your village and work remotely, while becoming a global citizen. Because even if you're confined to this village with the internet and being part of a global team, I mean, you get to encounter so many cultures, to be opened up to the world. And I think this is a good thing for the sustainability of our planet.
I love it, man. Yeah, we talk about this all the time too. The idea that we need to rethink from the ground up how we even live on this planet. Like all of our disposable consumerism doesn't help anything. And I hear people make the argument sometimes there's still so much more space, so we could keep, we're not running out of space. It's not about we're running out of space. There's 8 billion human beings. What had to die for us to spawn to 8 billion? How many other creatures on planet Earth, other Earthlings, have we had to eradicate the entire existence of to grow our population to this space? How do we work in a way that's more regenerative, that's more nurturing of the environments that we're in? I was flying, I just flew up to Boston for a trip, so just kind of up the East Coast here in the United States, and it's I'm up in the air, we're X whatever thousands of feet in the air, and I'm looking down. It's you can see there's a beautiful nature and green trees, and then there's a little pocket of humanity, and it just branches out. It's just concrete and asphalt, and everything else is dead, right? And it's we're a little rash on the planet. How do we fix that? That can't be the way we're supposed to live here. That doesn't make sense to me. We can't keep scaling that and expect the planet to be healthy and the water to be healthy and the air to be healthy. So yeah, and to clarify on what you're talking about, you're not saying hey, go live in your village and never go anywhere. You're saying you can build the area up where you're from and still be a global citizen, still travel, make more than you need in your money through the internet, through your endeavors, as long as you don't have an oppressive government stifling that through whatever regulations. You see some crazy shit like North Korea and stuff, but you can have valuable, meaningful interaction with the rest of the world and still travel and still see the world and do all that without having to leave your hometown, without having to abandon your family and your culture. Now, obviously, people want to move, whatever, that's fine. We're not saying don't do that if you feel inclined, but it shouldn't feel mandatory for you to have a life when you have the internet. You shouldn't feel like there's no other options. If you can connect to the internet and provide value to the marketplace, you should be able to extract your fair share out of that and, have a nice life. Like, I love that. We've got to get towards that.
Yeah, the trend, here is young people are forced to leave the country. We just want to give them another option. You can stay if you want, but if you want to leave, fine. But the country needs you, and if you can find, what I call the life-work balance, because life comes before work.
No, I love that.
If you find your balance here, just stay here.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody is more or less the same on some level, right? Like, we all want to be happy and we want to be healthy. We want our loved ones to be happy and healthy, right? Like, those are like, nobody doesn't want that unless there's something like fundamentally fucked up in your head, right? So, like, if we can all see each other on that level, go, how do we raise the tide of all ships, right? Like, how do we make everybody have a better quality of life? And some of these things, like you're talking about, is amazing. And I super commend you for putting that work into your own country, going, hey, like, we need this here, and I can see how I can provide that. Like, that's pretty powerful, man. I'm kudos.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So,
one thing I sometimes think of is that more is not always the answer. So I came up with this. I started thinking about this when I learned that the first landing on the moon required computing power that is less what is actually in one phone today.
Oh, easily, by a long shot.
So this is, and we all want more computing power for better AI, but maybe more is not the answer. I'm sure more is not the answer for our planet, but maybe we can extrapolate to other areas and say, okay, maybe smart is the better way. Maybe different is the better way. I don't know, but we both agree that we cannot continue this way, and we need to start shifting the focus and the priorities on things that really make sense in people's lives.
Yeah. Start thinking about what's best for my grandchildren's future, right? Like, how come that's not leading the conversation, right? Like, it's really bizarre, especially, I'm a middle-aged man now, I got a 12-year-old son, like, my father's dead, like, like, thinking about, like, what am I leaving behind? And not like, legacy and money and all that, and that's fine. I love making content like this and, like, thinking about, like, hey, maybe one day my kid will be able to jump on the internet and miss me and look at, like, these videos I made for years and years. I don't know, but, like, the idea that, like, we just kind of grossly neglect the future of future generations and, like, what we're leaving them, it's not okay. The system needs to evolve for sure. So I love some of these ideas. What are some things that you're doing with your company that you kind of feel like are forward thinking that maybe some other organizations aren't considering with remote work and that type of stuff?
Interesting question. There's one thing that we are really proud of, which is our collaborative training program. So, one of our values at the company is growth. So professional and personal development for everyone at all time. And how we do it, it's actually collaborative, because for every person, we decide together what training they need to take this year. So it's a yearly thing. It's up to 50 hours, sponsored by the company, paid for by the company. The idea is just for people to stay on a growth path. And we want something that is interesting to them and to the company. So we sit with someone who's very good at a specific technology, and we say, okay, to have a well-rounded profile, maybe you need to explore this area. And then say, okay, we agree on a program. They start working on it. Sometimes it's not the hard skills, it's the soft skills. So there's nothing set in stone. It's really tailored to everyone's own career path. What's best for our software engineers in their next step in their career, not necessarily today. So someone who's very good technically, but does not know how to manage a team, and the next step should be for them, the logical next step should be for them to manage a team. We would invest in a team management, team leadership, or how to manage a team training. Someone who's missing out, let's say, on AI. He's very good technically, but he needs some AI focus. we go and invest there. So this idea of collaborative training, I think it's quite nice because it's tailored to everyone's needs.
I love that. And talk about company culture. Like, that's serious company culture. When people know, like, hey, the company is literally willing to sit down, take their time. I'm sure this is you or someone in your leadership going, hey, here's our process of figuring out the best way to help you grow. And that's beautiful, right? Like, if we're not growing, we get stagnant. And I think, human beings, especially creative human beings, anybody creating things, and I argue all the time that everybody's innately creative. We just have different ways of manifesting things. Like, so that might be a spreadsheet, that might be music, that might be an art, that might be building a house, like whatever that is. But people need to feel like they're evolving and growing. You don't want to be the same person with the same skills when you're 40 that you had when you were 20. That's like, what are you doing, right? Like, if I'm not like a way more badass version of myself in 20 more years, like, I've been failing, right? So like, 100% love that. So do you guys have
technology? Yes.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, technology, and then AI. Obviously, like, if you're not evolving, like you're antiquated quickly. So
I mean, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. You cannot just stay wherever you are. AI was the latest illustration. We knew this for a while, but obviously in technology, it's deadly to stay stagnant.
Right. And what profession doesn't use technology?
Yeah.
I mean,
everything.
Maybe like a barefoot runner, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that person just needs to just keep focusing on their running game. But like, even that, there's still technology that you can implement to help you do that better. But everything evolves, right? Like, I see it in every single sector. Like, if you're not, the world doesn't stop moving. So if you stop, you're getting left behind, right? That's just the bottom line. So in this AI space, right, we're seeing a lot of, this is a big technological revolution. I've been watching it, been participating and learning. And like, me as an artist, like, I'm building myself a data set on exclusively my art and my father's art so that I can use that to make more art faster for my own sake. I do live streams and kind of cool stuff. So, obviously there's ethical uses of technology and unethical uses, especially AI, especially the way some of these data sets were created. These are huge issues that are still being litigated, which is great. In terms of like, I hope that they'll get to some sort of resolve that, does justice in whatever way is possible. But I've seen a huge push in the artist community. Like, artists hate it, right? Artists hate any major change. Like, artists hated Web3 and NFTs without even really understanding what it was, because assholes were out there being assholes, which they'll do in every sector, right? Like, we can't have nice things because people are going to show up and do dumb shit with it, right? Like, so like, like NFTs and Web3 got this whole impression that's like, this is all scams and it's all fake. And it's like, no, this is something you don't get. So I spent a lot of my time advocating for that. Then AI bust up into the scene. Everyone forgets about Web3 entirely, and it's just like, hey, everyone's artwork's getting stolen, and now artists are like, their work's being emulated without their permission. It's like all these infinite complications. And it's funny, like, here in the States, like, our government still doesn't do a great job of regulating Web2 things, right? Doesn't do a great job of like understanding like social media and like all that sort of stuff. We're finally maybe just getting to that space now. And now it's like, now we're having to come up with all these new laws and ways to protect each other from, AI and copyright infringement. And it's crazy. And so I say all that to say, like, my artists don't, for a lot of time, I'm a part of a lot of artist communities, both in a volunteer and in my business. But like, they don't want to embrace it. They don't want to look at it. They're just like, oh, I don't want another thing, especially not this. It devalues my art. And me as a creator, I'm looking at it like, I can do all of the things I wanted to do so much faster now. Like, I can take all this shit out of my head and make it cooler, better, faster. And I can do it better than anybody that's not an artist, because I also know how to use Photoshop and all these editing software. And so I can do really wild shit really fast. So I find it exciting. But, some people like are terrified of it, making them lose their job. But it's really just like a productivity tool. Like, I'm going to use a generative AI way better, way faster than a person that's like, oh, well, I can just type in a prompt. Well, yeah, but you can't do what I can do, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nowadays, it's really, I mean, the famous adage is AI will not replace you. Someone using AI will replace you.
yes,
So,
yeah,
yeah, as you were saying, I mean, you should make use of AI for productivity, even for, any kind of assistance. Personally, the best use cases for AI for me are mostly research
okay,
assistance. So let's say I want to tackle a specific issue. Uh, I talk to AI as if they were my assistant. I tell them, okay, this is me. This is specifically my situation. I describe it in all its details. And then I say, you are, let's say, if it's something about strategy, you are an experienced strategy consultant. You have to help me with this issue I have. And then it's an iterative process. You prompt, you get an answer, and then you ask again, and then the AI will reply back. So it's something that, for me, the best usage today is really assisting people doing their jobs better.
yeah,
And there are things that AI excels at, like financial planning. You just upload your balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, and they will analyze it. They will tell you this is your situation. You might be lacking this. So if you address any of the concerns, they will reply back saying, okay, so you might have an issue here, or you might now have no issues at all. So, and I made this exercise and it was quite impressive. So yeah, AI is going to change the world in the coming years. Now, AGI, or the super AI or super AGI, this is something that's gonna bring up philosophical questions like, if AI can do anything for you, what will you be doing yourself? What will be left for you to do? But this
just create amazing shit that you want to, just art, right? Like, I guess.
Yeah, but when we say AGI, it's artificial general intelligence, so it's like a human being in front of you that knows so much more than you do, because it has been trained on all of the world's data or available information. So they will create, let's say, in the style of Da Vinci, or they will write a poem in the style of Shakespeare. So this is where you would question, okay, what we will be doing. This is a question for the probably decades to come. It won't be happening anytime soon. But yeah, I always wonder about this.
I mean, if we lived in a world where you had an assistant that was a physical robot that did everything that you didn't want to do, and then you only, I mean, so it would be like an existential crisis for people, right? They'd lose like the way we're geared and wired and trained from birth to, but I think to prioritize life, right? I think would be a huge shift for people. You'd have to have it would break down all the capitalist systems. Like that'd be like, if I could just have my robot fix my house, like that's like, you know what I mean? And obviously we're a little fast forward past, what we were talking about, but that's where it goes eventually, right? Like this like service robot that like can do anything, right? It's connected to all of your internet things. And yeah, I don't know. It's insane. For me, like I would spend more time like just growing food and walking in nature and enjoy, like doing a painting for the joy of making that painting, right? Like just on the wall, like making things, just whatever that is, creative expression. Maybe just laughing and dancing and hanging out with other human beings, like just like a real thing. Whatever just makes you happy. Like, what if that was your only job? That would be crazy, right? Like that wouldn't. I don't know. Everything would kind of collapse. But
yeah, I mean, I probably don't think we can imagine this because we weren't built this way. But future generations, when everything is so easy for them, it might make more sense for them. Yeah, I mean, why work? Why bother? There's someone to do this for me. I don't know.
What is work at that point, right? Like,
what is work?
Yeah, we're barreling towards these existential questions. Like, what's the meaning of life? What is life? If an AI is fully sentient and can make decisions and talk to you and has the deepest understanding of humanity from all of the knowledge and expertise of every human being that's ever existed. Like, what is sentience? Like, how? I don't know. The questions get deep and crazy there. But, it makes me excited to think about, right? Like, I love science fiction and fantasy and all that sort of stuff and storytelling. And, like, some of these thoughts, I think, are best answered in those fashions, right? How do we express this in a story of, like, well, what if we were there? What would that look like? Does it have to be Terminator? Does it have to be iRobot? Does it have to be, like, doom and gloom and apocalypse? Or is there, like, can we make a movie about what the utopian thing could be, and does it have to be dystopian somewhere, right? Like, or is that just part of the system fighting its last dying breath of oppression of the elites, the 1.0001% versus the rest of the world who, we serve their dollars and their banking institutions. But I don't know.
We'll see, in 40 years towards the end of our life, we might get there. So there's still time.
We'll see. It could be very exciting, but I appreciate this conversation. It was deep. I love this.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of time here. Just for the show, not all of time, but just
following this conversation. Yeah, it's a good note.
So before we wrap up, I have one last question for you. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you'd like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a valuable mentor, a valuable resource, favorite client, anything of that nature?
Since we're talking remote, I would definitely recommend checking out the Running Remote community.
Remote community, where are they?
Yes. So they're remote.
And, sure. So, like, what? Do they have a website or?
So it's a website, runningremote.com. So it was born before the pandemic, and the idea is really to gather remote founders and executives and create this community where everyone will learn and the remote mindset will progress. So it's a year-long community. It lives in Slack, and there's one in-person gathering. For the past 2 years, it was the gathering was in Lisbon, in Portugal, and next year it's going to be in Austin. It's in spring, usually in April. And yes,
okay.
And so I learned a lot since joining this community. So many helpful people. So many valuable resources, so many, top people in this community. I would really advise listeners to check it out.
Sounds amazing. I'm excited to check it out. So thank you for sharing. Awesome. I want to give a big thank you to Danielle with Badassery as well, because she connected us with you. So thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
All right, so we have been talking to Fadi Boulos, who is the founder of Supportful. You can check out their website at supportful.world. So support, SUPPORTFUL.world, WORLD. But if listeners want to follow up you directly, where should they go?
I'm mostly present on LinkedIn. I'm actually only active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So Fadi Boulos, if they type it, they should probably land on my profile.
All right, and that's FADIBOULOS, and we'll put a link to that in the comments below or description or whatever that is.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Fadi. All right, friends, thank you so much for coming out, and we'll see you next time. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive podcast.